Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this forum for the City of Pleasant Ridge. Today is October 3rd, 2013. This forum will be featuring the 2 candidates who have filed for position of mayor and the 3 candidates who have filed for the position of city commissioner. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am Tara Moon, a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this city. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, national, nonpartisan political organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. We never endorse a candidate or party, but we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our communities strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have an opportunity to serve in a leadership role, such as this one, that has a direct impact on shaping issues on a local, state, and even national level. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, please pick up some of our membership literature that's here tonight or visit our website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum was established by the League. We ask that the audience remain silent throughout the presentation and try not to walk around, as you might obstruct the cameras and interfere with the cable broadcast. It's not live tonight, but it will be recorded. We ask that the candidates answer the question only with their views and not interrupt another candidate or address another candidate throughout the forum. Please take this moment to silence your cell phones. Our page Susie will be circulating through the audience tonight with index cards and pencils. If you think of a question throughout the forum, please raise your hand and Susie will come forward with a piece of paper for you. If you have paper with you right now and you write down a question, just raise your hand with that index card and she will come and collect it. You can ask as many questions as you want. It's not a guarantee that we'll get to all of them. We have about an hour tonight, but you can write down as many as you want. The candidates will answer all the questions. All the candidates will answer all the questions, so you can't address a specific question to a specific candidate. Let's see. All candidates will be given 1 minute to answer each question. They will also be given 1 minute for opening statements, and those will be read in alphabetical order. They'll have 1 minute for a closing statement at the end of the forum, and that will happen in reverse alphabetical order. When we get to the question portion of the forum, I'll rotate who goes first for each question. As I said, most questions will have a 1 minute answer unless I decide to extend it. We have a timer here tonight from the League. That's Judy Bateman. She's sitting in the front row. So candidates, pay attention to Judy and she'll tell you when to stop. Now let me introduce our candidates. Candidates for mayor are Kurt Metzger, Frank Rubino, and our candidates for city commission are Jay Foreman, Brett Scott, and Ryan Stern. Okay, so we're ready to begin with opening statements. Are you ready, gentlemen?
I think so.
All right, and we'll start with Mr. Metzger.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the League for Women Voters for sponsoring this, and for this kind of crowd, I'd like to see this crowd at every commission meeting. That would be wonderful. And it's nice that the Pleasant Ridge is working even though the federal government isn't. Since I'm worried about time limits, I'm going to read a little bit of my opening statement. My family and I moved to Sylvan Avenue on a 5-year plan. That was 26 years ago. We raised our children here and became enthusiastic volunteers with the Ferndale Public Schools. The years have gone by and we now walk our granddaughter through what we affectionately call the hood. I value and celebrate Pleasant Ridge's past, told so well in this fine book. Just a quick advertisement. If you haven't read it, please do. I am excited that the present features increasing diversity, buttressed by a strong human rights ordinance, and that our city is attracting a new generation of residents who value a community of neighbors, who care about each other and recognize the unique gem that is Pleasant Ridge. In order to ensure a future as vibrant as our past, we will need innovative leadership. Pleasant Ridge is a unique city. What? What?
Thank you,
What?
Mr. Metzger.
Man, oh man. Not fair. We'll pick it up later.
Mr. Rubino.
I was going to thank the League of Women Voters, but I don't have time. So.
Yeah, we get that.
That's lucky.
No, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing us to speak to this crowd, and I'm so glad a lot of you have shown up. This is fantastic. Except if you all do come to the commission meetings, I don't know if we're going to fit. Anyway, for those that don't know me, my name is, of course, Frank Rubino. I'm actually a transfer student from Fraser. I was in Fraser for 30-plus years working in the government. Okay, I got to go quicker. Okay, I met my wife, Peggy, in this wonderful town. She said, I'm not moving. You have to move here. I did that, and it was the best thing I've ever done. It's a great town. I've been a member of the Planning Commission, DDA, and I got to go real fast. And all I can say is I've been involved with the Pleasant Ridge Foundation, the Ferndale Educational Foundation, and done a lot of volunteer work. And I think the volunteers is what keeps this community moving. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight, and also, again, the League of Women Voters for putting on and moderating this event. My name is Jay Foreman. I'm asking for your vote this November 5th. I'd like to dive right into what is probably the biggest thing on everyone's mind here tonight. It's change. No matter how the election plays out, the city will see more local change than it has seen in several decades. Change is a fact of life. It's inevitable, but it's how we deal with change that empowers us to manage our destiny. Just in the past couple of years, the makeup of our city has already changed a great deal. We're currently in the midst of a generational shift. If we are to preserve our values and our identity, we need to explore new ways of enabling our aging population to stay here longer, and ways to include our newer residents in what it is to be Pleasant Ridge residents, Ridgers. I'm sitting up here tonight because I made a decision and a commitment to serve the city that I love, a decision to work with my neighbors to preserve, restore, and build upon the values that have brought and kept us all here, a decision to take inevitable change and make it work for Pleasant Ridge. If elected this November, that is what I will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
Hi, my name is Brett Scott. Feel very fortunate to be a resident of Pleasant Ridge. I've lived here for about 2 years. I moved from Reston, Virginia, just outside of DC. I felt very fortunate about being offered an opportunity to get back to southeastern Michigan, and absolutely fell in love with Pleasant Ridge. It's a wonderful community. There are a few things, though, that I think we can do to make it even better, and they're mostly around how we operate as a city. And what I want to do is take the experience that I have learned in the time that I've worked in the automotive community and in other areas around the world to help us operate better as a city and to just tune things up a little bit. And you'll hear me see 3 words a lot. It's planning, maintenance, and the thought of thinking forward. Thinking about where we want to be in the future, but preserving the things that are very important to us and the things that make Pleasant Ridge very special. Thank you for your time. Thank you, League of Women's Voters.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern.
I would first like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's wonderful to see everybody. In 2005, my family moved to Pleasant Ridge to establish a lifelong resident. Pleasant Ridge attracted us because of its safety, community involvement, and exceptional services. I am running for commissioner to give back to the community that has provided so much to my family. Not only do I have the character and integrity to be the commissioner, I have the experience. For 13 years, I've been an attorney practicing law in the areas of contracts and real estate. I am also a managing partner of a law firm, and I currently serve on the Planning Commission and Downtown Development Authority and various other charitable boards. With the mayor, city manager, and Commissioner Bushy leaving office, it is more important than ever that we have experience on our commission. If elected, I will use my experience to keep Pleasant Ridge the unique community that we all cherish. I will advocate for maintaining a dedicated police department, transparency, fiscal responsibility, and cooperate with all neighboring communities so that we have the best services possible.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. We'll now start with questions, and the first to answer will be Mr. Metzger. Candidates, if you ever need me to repeat a question, just ask. I'm happy to do so. And remember that you're answering the audience, not me. The first question gives you a chance to expand on your involvement in the community. So talk a little bit about your involvement in the community of Pleasant Ridge. Mr. Metzger.
Well, as I said, I've been here for 26 years. I think. Oh, yes. Oh, give me my microphone. We've been here for 26 years, and while I have not served in government, I've been certainly involved in a lot of the activities. I think we take a great deal of pride in the work that we did with the public schools. Our kids went through Ferndale Public Schools from K through 12. We were involved with a lot of volunteer activities. We certainly worked the various shows, and we participated in a lot of committees and boards. We also did a lot of work with the Fern Ridge Environmental Coalition in order to close down the Reichhold Company and to remediate the land that was on the east side of Pleasant Ridge, down at the end of Sylvan Avenue. And I think that was one of the big accomplishments. And certainly while I've been doing a lot of work and trying to run a business, my wife has been extremely involved in a lot of the activities. You'll remember the rummage sale, and probably we all have very fond memories of that, and Jody was very much involved in that. So while I haven't been on a number of committees, I have certainly served the city of Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino.
Go ahead and repeat that for me, please.
Sure. The question is, as written on the card, how long have you been a resident, and what has been your involvement in the community?
Well, I became a resident in 2001 when my lovely wife Peggy and I got married. And immediately I started getting involved because I've always been a person that was involved in my community. The first thing, of course, was our block parties. I was in charge of Slurpee machines for all the children every year. And the kids absolutely loved that. I also was with the PR Dance Club in the beginning, also with fundraisers. I worked with the Ferndale Educational Foundation when they had their dinners. My wife had directed me to go help set the tables up and get them all together. I worked with the Pleasant Ridge Foundation doing the sales, and you're talking about the boutique. I used to help put the items on the shelves, help do the sales, help unload the trucks, and get involved with that. Okay, 15 seconds. I was on the Planning Commission, DDA. I was chairman of that. I've been involved with everything that the city needs to do. Whenever Sherry would call, I would go to those meetings, and whatever she needed me to do, I did. And I got to stop talking.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Thank you.
Mr. Foreman.
My family and I have lived in Pleasant Ridge since March of 2010, so that's about, well, running on 4 years. We started on Cambridge for a year, we moved to Maplefield, and that's probably where we will remain forever. I started on the Rec Commission in January of 2012 as a secretary. I remain in that position today. I joined the Men's Club in the spring of 2010. We joined the Social Club shortly thereafter. We participated pretty regularly in both of those organizations and really enjoy the participation there. Obviously, this is Pleasant Ridge, so we have a lot of block parties. We've gone to a lot of block parties, Oakdale, Wellesley, Fairwood, and others. That's part of what we love so much about the city, is just the openness of the residents, including everyone in their affairs and their parties. Also, Bago, there's a Bago/Cornhole tournament that takes place in front of the train station in Detroit that's put on by a fellow Pleasant Ridge resident. Participate in that every year. Basically, the bottom line is we participate in everything we can because we enjoy community involvement, and we know that's what Pleasant Ridge is all about. And Pleasant Ridge really embraced us, and we try to embrace new neighbors as well.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
Yes, I moved into Pleasant Ridge in November of 2011 from Virginia. And since then, I've been fairly active in attending as many of the commission meetings that I can possibly attend. I have been assisting the city in understanding the water bill and how to present that to the residents as we go forward and look at millage proposals, and attend the Recreation and Planning Commission meetings whenever possible to understand as much as I can. I have completely immersed myself in the city budget to understand line by line how we are spending money as a city so that we can look forward to how we will spend it in the future and where the money should go in the future. And so wherever possible, I have attempted to immerse myself in the workings of the city and look forward to doing that on behalf of all the residents of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern.
My family and I have participated in most of the events that are put on by the city. We participated in recreation events put on by the Recreation Department, the Social Club, the Foundation, the Planning Commission, the DDA. But not only do we participate in those events, I have personally volunteered for every one of these organizations. The Recreation Department, I help them set up and clean up events. The Social Club, I've been a member of in the past and was on their board. The Foundation, I just volunteered for the gala and numerous other events. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm currently on the Downtown Development Authority, and I've also volunteered to coach kids soccer for the City of Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. The next question will start with Mr. Rubino. There are several questions on this topic. I'm going to combine two questions and give you a minute and a half to answer these ones. Okay. Regarding regionalization and partnerships with surrounding communities, can you explain how Pleasant Ridge will benefit from a regional fire authority? And do you now or have you ever supported a move to merge our police and fire services with the City of Berkeley Public Safety? If yes, why? If no, why not?
First, you want me to answer the question about regionalism?
You can answer them however you would like.
Okay. As far as regionalism is concerned, I think that Pleasant Ridge does an excellent job of that right now. We are involved with a lot of other communities. Royal Oak does our water. We are with Huntington Woods with our library. Our fire is with Ferndale. And Brylar is our public works. The only thing we have left is our police department. I don't know if there's any other type of regionalism we can do. I think we have set the stage for our community volunteering and working with other communities, as was said by the state for the revenue sharing. As far as Berkeley is concerned, yes, we did sign a contract to go with Berkeley. It was a strategy in the negotiation with the fire contract with Ferndale, which is quite in-depth. And there's been a lot of questions about the fire contract with Berkeley. But it was when Ferndale denied negotiating for the contract, we had no choice but to protect the city. So we signed a contract as a backup plan, hoping that Ferndale would come back to the table. They did so. We negotiated the contract, and now we have a good fire contract with Ferndale. Am I out of time to go on the rest of it, or?
How much time do you?
15 seconds.
Okay. Am I against the fire authority with Ferndale? I don't know if I'm against a fire authority with Ferndale. I'm against a police fire authority. I don't want our police department jeopardized in any way. I want our police department to remain in Pleasant Ridge and not to be anywhere else but here where they belong.
Thank you, Mr.
I have to
Rubino.
stop. Okay.
Mr. Foreman.
The question of regionalization and partnerships, obviously, yes, the City of Pleasant Ridge does participate in this to a great deal, and it's to all of our benefit that we do that. As Commissioner Rubino mentioned, the DPW is with Royal Oak. We obviously have Brylar, and we use Ferndale for our fire protection services. I think that is, again, to our benefit that we continue those types of partnerships. When we talk about the Berkeley deal from 2011, I was never in support of that, and I still am not today, for reasons of response time. That was a big problem back then, and it would still be a problem today due to the distance from Berkeley to Pleasant Ridge and the different ways that you could arrive here from Berkeley. We've had a long-time partnership with the City of Ferndale. I think it's been a good partnership. I know there have been some ups and downs in that, as there are in any relationship. I think as long as we continue the process of communicating and collaborating and make sure that we are respectful of our neighbors and we demand the same of those neighbors, we can continue in mutually beneficial relationships such as this.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
Yes. Yeah, I think the answer for police, fire, and all of the services that we have in the city is very simple for Pleasant Ridge. We're in the enviable position of being able to select the absolute best services that we want, because we're not saddled with a lot of the legacy things that other communities have. We don't have a large firehouse. We don't have separate police building. Without question, though, we are very much proud and happy and pleased with the service that we're receiving from our police department. I see no reason to move that in any other direction. With the fire department, we most definitely want to choose the best service that the city can possibly have. And I agree with comments where moving to Berkeley would have been detrimental to our fire service, primarily because of the distances related to getting their service to us. But we should always look at the best possible service that we can get for Pleasant Ridge. We're always a community talking about value and not lowest dollar. We want our services to reflect the other services that we get, and that's where I think we should continue going with the city. High value services, looking at our best options, and moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern.
Yeah, could you read the question again?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think I missed it.
Regarding regionalization and partnership with surrounding communities, can you explain how Pleasant Ridge will benefit from a regional fire authority? And do you now or have you ever supported a move to merge our police and fire services with the city of Berkeley?
With regard to the police and fire services, that's an easy one. I'm dedicated to maintaining our police. Sorry. I'm dedicated to maintaining our independent police force. Our independent police force knows our homes, knows our residents, patrols our streets. They know when something's out of place. Nowhere else are you going to get such a service. With regard to the regionalization with a fire authority, the answer is I don't know at this time. On March 14, 2013, the city of Ferndale and Hazel Park approved a study to be conducted on the feasibility of creating this authority. There are some issues that need to be addressed, though, before we approve going to a fire authority or not. Those issues are what would Pleasant Ridge representation be on that fire authority? When they create a fire authority, it means taking our fire services out of our general operating expenses and putting it into a separate governmental agency which taxes, which can tax. So since Ferndale and Hazel Park both have substantially higher populations than Pleasant Ridge, chances are we will be very underrepresented in this fire authority. There are a couple solutions to this. Instead of joining the authority, contract the authority, but these issues need to be worked out after this study is complete to even determine whether it's feasible or not.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Yes, I think it's reassuring to hear regionalism used in a positive vein tonight, and it is the idea of Pleasant Ridge being able to utilize our neighbors for services and to have these kinds of contracts because we can't not provide the services ourselves. And in the larger scheme of things are regional efforts around transportation, transit along Woodward Avenue, complete streets. Pleasant Ridge has a very important part to play. We sit on the Woodward corridor. We need to be part of those discussions. And that is not giving up our home rule. It's not giving up any of our independence. It is just being a partner in the larger context of this region. I think as far as the fire authority, and let me just reiterate, certainly we want to maintain the police department. I don't think that there's any differences among the five of us, that we want to maintain our independent police force, and we will continue to do that. And the residents have spoken in the past that they would pay higher taxes in order to do that, whatever is necessary. As far as the fire authority, I think it was mentioned that we do not have to belong to the fire authority. We can continue, even if Ferndale and Hazel Park come together, if Royal Oak Township is part of that, Pleasant Ridge can continue to contract services with the fire authority the way we do now with the city of Ferndale. And I would recommend that we continue to do that and that we continue to maintain that strong relationship that we have. The whole idea of you can get more with honey than you can get with. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. The next question will start with Mr. Foreman. There have been several questions about the proposal on the ballot about the water bill structure. What do you think about the proposed millage water bill structure? That's how it's written on the card. What do you think of the proposed millage/water bill structure? And another question that's related is, how do you feel about dual water meters?
Well, Proposal A would if it passes, it would allow the city to impose additional taxes. If it doesn't pass, then we can't look at that. And we have to look at other methods of getting revenue, like cutting services or increasing water rates again. So basically, if the plan that the city has currently put into place, if Proposal A passes, would be to take 2 mills off of the water bills and move it over to the tax rolls. I think this is a good idea because this is the G.W. Kuhn drain debt and a very large portion of administrative overhead charges. These are things that should have never been in the water bill to begin with. However, the city was unable to raise taxes, so I think this is kind of where they ended up. They need to be moved off of there. So if Proposal A passes, I think it's critical that it passes in order for us to begin the process of fixing this broken water bill structure. As to dual water meters, I'm not sure that would really help us very much. I think that's because if you're metering the water that comes out for your hose that doesn't necessarily go in the street, you're still not paying your portion based on the current broken billing structure of the current fixed costs that the city must pay regardless. So that would only set us back and cause water rates to go up even more.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott?
Yes, there are 2 millage proposals on the table, one that adjusts the general fund and one that adjusts the infrastructure fund. And Proposal A is the one that addresses the general fund. As Mr. Foreman has mentioned, part of that proposal is to move some of the bill that we see in the water over to our general tax fund. My feeling about the water bill is that it does need to be fixed in that we have a problem that our fixed costs are being charged as variable cost. Essentially, every low water users are finding themselves with bills that are not paying the portion of the fixed costs that are associated with everyone. So I believe that we do need to adjust the water bill, and we actually do need to approve. My suggestion is to approve Proposal A so that we can adjust how the funds are being charged between the water and the normal tax structure.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern?
There's multiple parts to Proposal A. It's the Headley override. 2 mills is going to be used for infrastructure improvements, pools, the fitness center, stuff like that. That's absolutely necessary. We need that money. The water bill is a choice for you. The water bill is what the City Commission did to try and reduce complaints and reduce the water bill. It is moving water charges to taxes. If the people want to move water bills charges to taxes and reduce their water bill and pay the same amount of expenses, then they should vote for it. If the people don't want to do that, then they shouldn't. The bottom line is moving water to taxes does not save the city any money whatsoever. Or any of the residents, the majority of the residents don't save any money on it either.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Well, we have a situation where property taxes have gone down. The property tax monies coming into the city have gone down since our property values went down. And that started in 2005, went through 2010, and our response was to raise assessments on our water bills. We made up for that by adding variable costs, adding other fees to the water bills to pay for to keep the property taxes down, which we were keeping back in 1976 rates. We have to make a change on that. The Headley will start to restructure our water payments to a more reasonable method of moving it over to property taxes where we can actually take it as a deduction, and to move some of those fixed costs, which right now we are constantly, after this year of a lot of rain, we know that the amount of water that was used is a lot less. We're going to be even in more problems. We're going to have to raise those rates again. We need to do a change, and I think that Headley is certainly the way to start, and we need to discuss that with the community going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
Thank you. I think the proposal that the City Commission has presented to the voters is something that the voters have to decide. One thing you have to realize is that you're going to pay the bill either on your water bill or on your tax roll. If you want to get it transferred to your tax roll, at least you'll be able to claim some of that on your income tax, but the bill still has to be paid. There is no way that it can be reduced. We don't have the commercial or the industrial users that a lot of our neighbors have, that they can pass some of those costs on to them. It can only be passed on to the residents, and the residents have to pay for that. If you want it to be moved to the water bill, from the water bill to the tax roll, that is strictly up to you. All of us agree on one thing, is that we definitely have to get some millage increases to be able to survive, because we haven't had a general fund obligation increase in quite a few years. The second part, on the secondary meters, it would not work in our city because we have a combination system. If we had an individual system where the sanitary and the storm sewers were separated, we would be able to do that. We can't do that now because of the combination systems.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. The next question will start with Mr. Scott. We invested in our Woodward corridor. Do you support a mass transit system that would change the corridor?
That's a tough 60-second question.
Yeah.
In general, we know how important Woodward is to Pleasant Ridge. It has a major impact on how people get through our communities and how people view our community. And so whatever type of transit exists along Woodward affects how people see our community. I'm personally in favor of transit along Woodward. There are several proposals that are on the table. One is referred to as a bus rapid transit system, which will run essentially from Pontiac to Detroit and simulates mass transit, rail transit, but gives you the look and feel of something that's more neighborhood-like and something that's more easy to live with, and would also could in effect help improve the appearance of Woodward wherever the transit is placed. So anything that helps us get around our community throughout throughout southeastern Michigan, I think is a good thing for our community. But we have to be careful to choose the right variety of mass transit that might run through Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern?
Yeah, I agree. Mass transit along Woodward is a great idea. I mean, people should have the access to transportation. It's just the right thing to do. Changing the Woodward corridor to accommodate mass transit, again, is something that I can't answer right now. Right now, there is a feasibility study being conducted by the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments and the WA3 to determine how the Woodward corridor should accommodate mass transit. And until those studies are done, it's hard for me to say we should change it or not change it. I'd rather look at the studies, see what the recommendations are before I make that determination. But we definitely should have a mass transit system along the Woodward corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Well, the Detroit region is the only region of the top 25 in the country without a regional transit system. And after 24 votes, we finally got a regional transit authority. And obviously, we need a transit system to move through this region, and we also need a system that doesn't allow communities to opt out. And certainly, Woodward Avenue is the core of the region. There has to be the rapid bus line that we are proposing will be on Woodward Avenue. It needs to be on Woodward Avenue as one of the key roads in this system. The discussion, though, is what does this mean? How is it going to look? Whether is it going to run side road, middle of the road? And I think the one thing is we have an alternatives analysis. We have a complete streets analysis. Pleasant Ridge needs to be at that table. We need to be getting the information back to the community, and the community has to have a say as to how we want Pleasant Ridge engaged in this process.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
Thank you. I absolutely believe that mass transit and rapid transit is absolutely in our future. The price of fuel is not going to go down. It's always going to go up. Parking is always going to be a problem. So I really believe that mass transit is something that we definitely have to look into, and it is definitely in our future. However, I'd want to see exactly the design and exactly how they're going to do it, and Pleasant Ridge has to be an integral part of that. We don't want something flying through our city that we can't participate in. We also don't want to lose our mediums. We want to make sure that it doesn't hurt our city, but we also want to make sure that we have a plan that would work for all of us to be part of. I think it is a wave of the future, and I think it's something that we really need to do. And I am in support of that.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman.
I share the thoughts of the others so far. I think we certainly need a mass transit system that is very efficient. We currently have the SMART system, so that is a mass transit system, but I think we can do better than what we have currently. The BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit, emphasizes rapid, fast. So it doesn't have the stops as shortly spaced as we're maybe used to, so it could be more efficient and get people to where they want to go much faster and efficiently. As has been mentioned already, the alternatives analysis is currently underway. There are things being discussed and decided, and plans are not concrete at this time. I think what's important is for us to, as a community, identify what our needs are here, identify what will suit us best, and make sure that we advocate for those needs in these conversations and these meetings where these major things are being decided. They haven't been decided yet, but they will be soon, and we need to make sure that we know what Pleasant Ridge wants. How do we do that? Well, there's a survey coming out shortly from the Planning Commission that will touch on some of these concepts, but we'll need supplemental surveys and definitely heavy community involvement.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. The next question will start with Mr. Stern. It's 3 questions in one, but it all addresses the same topic, so we're going to stick with a minute on this one. In 2013, Cork Wine Pub notified Pleasant Ridge they would like to open an outdoor seating patio in the rear of the building, which is in the alley. If elected, what would be your position on this topic? What are your thoughts on businesses in Pleasant Ridge open past 10 p.m.? And how will you protect the homeowners when new or expanded development is proposed?
My position on the Cork patio is that we have a zoning ordinance and charter that allows Cork to apply for a variance and have their due process before the City Commission and request that item. It does not guarantee Cork will get it, but it does permit them to request it and have that hearing. It also permits all the residents who are in favor of it or not in favor of it to attend that hearing and voice their opinion, and at the end of the day, a decision will have to be made on that issue. With regard to businesses staying open past 10 p.m., I guess it depends on the nature of the business, the impact on the residents. With every business in Pleasant Ridge that opens, we need to determine what the impact on the residents are, so that we could limit that impact if possible and coexist with our businesses. We want to have businesses in the city of Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Yes, I think this points to the need for a much stronger ordinances, and I think that a new city manager will be very important in order to do that. We certainly have to look at the business strip on the east side of Woodward. It's very important, and what kinds of development, what do we want to see going forward? As far as Cork, listening to the residents, there was a lot of discussion, and I think what it did point out was that the voices of the residents are very important in these discussions, and we need to bring these to the public early on. It was very clear that some of the issues that residents had with Cork up until that point had not been taken care of to their satisfaction. And so there was a lot of question about going forward and moving it into the back. And people were looking not to limit the outdoor, but to certainly replace the outdoor in a different location. As far as later businesses stating later, I believe same thing as Ryan. I think this is very important for community engagement across the board.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
I have to agree somewhat with Mr. Ryan, and the reason is it would have to be a process of events for an application to the city and have the City Commission and the Planning Commission to determine that. And I don't think as a sitting commissioner I can tell you how I would feel on that matter, because I think that's improper if not illegal. But I can tell you that they would be allowed the same application process as any business that would come before the Planning Commission and the City Commission. If I wasn't a commissioner, I could give you an answer, but I can't as a commissioner. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Yeah.
Mr. Foreman?
To the first question regarding Cork and the outdoor seating to the rear of the restaurant, as a resident, as a potential city commissioner, I would certainly not be in favor of this. I've heard what the residents have said about it. I understand the concerns completely. So I don't think the rear of the restaurant is the right place for it. In the front of the building, that's another story. On the side of the building, perhaps. I'm just not sure what the right fit is. I know it's not in the rear of the building. Again, that's not my choice, though. We need to let the residents speak on that. I believe they have. We didn't have the public hearing because that was canceled. The plan was changed. They may come back and this discussion will happen again. As to the hours of 10 p.m., should a business be allowed to open past 10 p.m.? I think it depends on the business. If it's a ballet studio, maybe that's okay. If it's a mime shop, then that's okay too. But if it's something that's going to be louder and have an impact on the community, absolutely not. We need to factor that into any of our decisions. As for the impact on the homeowners, this is certainly of primary concern because what we have here primarily, first and foremost, is residents. We want to have successful businesses, of course, but we have to make sure that the impact from those businesses on the residents are minimized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott?
Yes, the issue of Cork is actually bigger than Cork. It goes to my third point of thinking forward. What do we want the east side strip of Woodward to look like moving forward? And Cork is an example of how we need to think about how we want businesses to interact with the residences around the east side of Woodward. Our strip of Woodward is not like Ferndale strip of Woodward. They have a buffer with parking spaces and other things to keep noise levels down, to keep the intrusion down of the businesses, and so we really have to give some careful thought about how we populate that east side strip of Woodward, and that's what we should be thinking about as we create our new master plan, which is under construction now. How do we want the east side of Woodward to look? That's also true for the operating hours. We should make sure that our ordinances comply to however we want this side of Woodward to look.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. The next question will start with Mr. Metzger. Do you perceive an east-west divide, and if so, what do you propose to do to overcome it?
We knew this question was coming, right? I see two very distinct neighborhoods that are divided by Woodward Avenue. I think obviously when we walk around, we take our children on an alleyway or tree-lined streets. We take the paths that we walk our dogs are very different. And we even have to cross Woodward Avenue from one side to the other depending on whether we're looking for wine or ice cream. And I think that they're very different paths we take. But we are united in that one community with a sense of pride and responsibility. We may be very different with a business district in between. Very different park areas, different needs, different sidewalks, different other work that needs to be done. But we are united in that we want transparent government, we want a police force, we want the same value, we have the same values regardless of what side of Woodward we live on. It's just that we have to recognize that there are very different issues on both sides of Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
One of the things I asked at a commission meeting, I was really confused because I thought the east side started at DeQuinder. I didn't know it started at Woodward. And that's the way I feel about this town. This town is our town. It's not their town and my town, it's our town. We all are residents of a very unique and beautiful city. One of the things that I had talked about if becoming mayor was to allow the Public Works building to be turned into a community center because it meets the criteria of historical home, and I think there's grants available, and we could do and utilize that east side of that park, and it could become where we would have, on this side, we had to go on the east side, if you want to call it that, to use the building. And I just think that's fair. And I'm sorry there's a Woodward, but if we were on this side of Hilton, we would all be on the west side, and we're on this side of Coolidge, we'd all be on the east side. So to me, it seems like we are one community, and that's exactly what we need to be all together. It takes a community to raise children, not a family, but a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman?
I think I would echo some of the comments already made. I don't think we have a divide in people. I think we have a divide in geography. We have Woodward cutting our town in half. We have different areas of the city that require different maintenance needs. They require different types of attention. It all depends on what assets, what park space, what types of things are going on in those particular sections of the city. So we need to make sure that we adapt our maintenance plans, adapt our attentions to those different areas of the city so they're being maintained equally. I think many residents will tell you that we have parks on the west side that are very well maintained and parks on the east side that are not as well maintained. There's a disparity there in the maintenance of our parks. We're starting to catch up with that, thankfully, due to a plan and contributions from the foundation, which we should be looking at that very soon. But it's taken us a long time to get here. I think we've ignored some of the east side spaces for a long time, and it would have been nice if we had kept them to the same level, the same standard.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I'm going to echo some of the comments that have already been made. We are one community. Having walked to a number of households in the process of the election, it's clear that we all feel a sense of camaraderie, and we really are one united community. But there are differences that are apparent in the three neighborhoods that we have in Woodward. There's a east side neighborhood, there's a west side neighborhood, and then there's Woodward itself, where there are houses. And it's easy to forget that there are houses on Woodward, but there are people living on Woodward. And each of these three spaces have different needs, and we need to make sure that we are maintaining the properties and taking care of our fellow neighbors in all three spaces. Gainsborough Park needs some help, and from what I've heard, the fence in Gainsborough Park has needed help for 25 years. So it's time to think about that as a space that needs help. But we've also got some help that's needed right here behind this building, and that's shared space. That's our community space. Let's take care of it as a united community.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern?
I don't believe that there is a divide. I'm friends with people on the west side, I'm friends with people on the east side, and I'm going to tell you, Woodward is not going to stop me from getting over. We're one neighborhood. We're one community. The things that need to be taken care of on the west side affect the people on the east side. The things that need to be taken care of on the east side affect the people on the west side. We are a small community. People talk in this community. The only thing that, how do we fix, well, I should say, I have heard that there is a divide, and how do we stop that? We get volunteers from both sides of Woodward on committees and events and recreation events. We encourage community involvement from both sides. The more people meet each other, the less they're going to see any difference in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. The next question will start with Mr. Rubino. With the current financial position, reduced property values, reduced revenue sharing, how would you maintain current services?
Well, the first answer I would give, or first statement I would make to that is that we were very fortunate in Pleasant Ridge where our home values have maintained. We've been very fortunate because of the type of community we have. We are very fortunate in that instance. How would we maintain what we have? That is the reason for the millage, because we do have a rollback problem that each year the taxes roll back and less is collected. How would we keep ourselves financially sound? By making sure that every dollar we spend and every penny we spend is accounted for, and make sure there's good reason for that expenditure to be given. But we know the millage coming through now is necessitated. The people of Pleasant Ridge, I think, realize that. And Pleasant Ridge has done a great job over the years of maintaining good financial stability. We are one of the few communities that has not had the problem that we've seen around us with all going into either foreclosures or having emergency managers come in. We're very fortunate not to have that. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Yeah.
Mr. Foreman.
The question is, how can we maintain our current levels of service? I think we've already been having a problem with this for a number of years. We've made several cuts. City Hall is now closed on Fridays. We've reduced our leaf pickups. We're no longer shoveling or plowing our sidewalks when the snow gets deep. The pool hours have been cut. So we've been dealing with this problem for a while. I think the city has made the belt tightenings that have been necessary. But the question comes down to, do we want to continue this? Do we want to keep chipping away at what makes Pleasant Ridge so special, these many amenities that have kept us here? My answer, I don't think we want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I think that's why we need a Headley override. I think that will help us get the additional tax revenue that we need to sustain the programs that we have and build them back up to where residents want them. We'll have to work with residents to identify where we want those things and how we want to spend that money, but it's important to have it. If we don't get it, what we'll have to do is cut additional services. We've heard talk about opening the pool up to residents of other communities. I'm not sure we want to do that. Another option is to increase water rates again. So we can keep doing that, but I don't think that's the right path for us. This seems to be the way we need to go, is a Headley override.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
Yes, I agreed with several of the comments that have been made, and as I stated earlier, I am in favor of the Headley override for the same reason. We've reached a point where we have a choice to make. We can either reduce services to maintain our budget or maintain our services and increase our budget. That's our choice. And I think we have all chosen to live and stay and enjoy Pleasant Ridge for the wonderful services that we have, for the beauty of the community, and I am in favor of keeping it as beautiful as it is today, and fixing a few of the little things that we have problems with today. For example, most people might not even realize it only costs $10 a year to shovel your sidewalk if we do it for all houses in the city. Let's do it for all houses in the city. It's a great service, and that might be something we can all agree on. Fixing the sidewalks, making sure that the leaves are picked up, making sure that the pool is open when you want it to be open, better city hall hours. These are all things that will be required or could be done with the Headley override.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern.
I think the city has done a phenomenal job in maintaining our services today. With the decline in the economy, we haven't really lost anything. Our services are still phenomenal. But in 2014, we may see some problems. And we definitely need a millage to maintain our pool, our recreation facilities, our recreation programs, and our fitness facilities. We definitely need a millage for that purpose. And the Headley override would fulfill that purpose in that those monies will come from the Headley override to maintain our services and maintain these facilities. If the Headley override does not pass, we're going to have to think really hard about cutting services or coming up with a new millage that is commensurate with the needs of this city so that we can maintain all of the services that our residents desire.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger.
Well, I'm going to agree on the Headley override, but I am going to say that just talking with others at work and around this region, it's always a look of amazement on their eyes when they hear about the services that we have. The leaf pickup, the streets being plowed, a lot of the other kinds of services that we've grown to love and to kind of count on. That is something that not many people have. So I hope that we can continue to continue those services, but I also realize that we have to come up with new ways to fund them. And we need to renegotiate contracts. We've got to go out there for all the contracts. We talked about contracting out most of our services. We need to make sure that we're getting the best services for our buck. And we also need to go to the public. Brett mentioned $10 for snow shoveling. When we did a 2011 survey, a lot of people talked about the services that they wanted. We want to present those to the public and get their opinions.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. The next question will start with Mr. Foreman. Have you ever hired someone in a position of authority, like a city manager, and how would you go about hiring our new city manager?
I've never actually hired anyone as part of my job. That's not one of my responsibilities, but I have some ideas about how I think the city manager should be hired. I think the first step is to identify an interim city manager. We need to use the Michigan Municipal League to do that. They would get us someone who is typically a retired city manager. They would come in and get up to speed on our systems and allow us to then conduct our search for a permanent city manager. The problem is we don't have much time for that. After the election, we'll have maybe 2 weeks before our city manager ends her duties here on November 30th. So we'll really have to hit the ground running with that. Once we have the interim identified, we'll need to immediately begin our search for a permanent city manager. I think we should conduct a full and thorough search of all qualified candidates. Make sure we find someone that's got the right fit for Pleasant Ridge, the right mentality, the right work experience, the right mindset, the right vision, ideas, communication style, and moreover, I want them to want to stay here. I don't want them to have to feel like they're going to leave after a year or two and then we have to do this all over again. We have to find the right fit for Pleasant Ridge, and that's very important.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
One of the roles that I've had in my past is helping Volkswagen start up a new research lab in California. When I moved there in 2003, they had 12 people, and my job was to bring them to 50 people in about 18 months. So I do have some experience hiring people. It was about 12,000 resumes boiled down to 38 people. And that takes a lot of careful looking at what people have to offer and making sure that they're really fitting for the job. It's very key for Pleasant Ridge because the city manager is the most important person that we have in City Hall and really one of the most important people that we have in the city. It's the person that you will interface with all the time, and so I think everyone on the panel would agree we have to take this very seriously, and as Mr. Foreman mentioned, go through a professional process in hiring the next city manager, making sure that we get the absolute best talent to manage the day-to-day operations of our city.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern.
As I said earlier, I am a managing partner at a law firm. I've had to hire managers on numerous occasions over the 13 years. I am also on various boards for charitable organizations. Every year we have to choose a president and an executive board, and every year we have to evaluate the chief executive officer, determine how they're doing, and evaluate the budgets, etc. So I have experience in looking at these items and looking at qualifications to determine who is the best candidate. With regard to Pleasant Ridge, we do need a city manager, and we need a city manager ASAP. We need to get on the Michigan Municipal League and get applications from candidates, and we need to review these applications, and we should choose the best qualified applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger.
In 2009, I was given a little bit over $2 million by the foundation community in Detroit to start something called Data Driven Detroit. And I started from scratch, and I had to hire the best people I could find. And now, as I'm starting to turn that over to those people, I feel very assured that I made some great choices. There is a very great process set up for city managers. This is an incredibly important job. This is the person who runs the city. The mayor and the commission set the vision and the policies for the city. The city manager runs the day-to-day operations. We need to go through the process. Again, Jay mentioned the interim city manager process, and then the interview process. We need to do a broad advertisement. We need to open it up. Pleasant Ridge is a great opportunity for a young, well-trained, well-educated city manager to come in who's had that experience. I think we have tremendous opportunities going forward, and we should be able to get a lot of good candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino.
The answer to the question is yes. I have been involved in hiring CEOs and city managers. When I left as city manager in the city of Fraser, one of the things that the city council had asked me to do is organize a committee to interview the new city managers that were going to take my place. Also, I was chairman of the board for St. Pat's in Detroit, which is the largest senior center in Michigan, with over $1.25 million budget. And my job as chairman of the board was to do an interview process to hire a CEO for and operate the St. Pat's Senior Center. Using the Michigan Municipal League to set this up and to get an interim while we do an interview process, it set up a committee to do the initial interview process until you narrow it down to enough few members that the city commission can actually finish the interview and do the final picking. That is the best way I have found when we pick a new city manager and a new CEO, not having the entire board do it, but have a committee set up from the board to interview and reduce it down, and then the commission finishes it.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. The next question will start with Mr. Scott. Would you support the formation of a historic zoning board to help further protect the integrity of the unique and historic homes in our city?
Pleasant Ridge is very fortunate in having a diversity of housing stock. I am one of those people that lives in one of the weird houses in town. I have a mid-century modern ranch, and it doesn't look like anybody else's house in Pleasant Ridge. And I'm very thankful that Pleasant Ridge has this diversity in housing stock. The decision to going to a historical board is not a small decision because it will very severely limit the ability that a resident has to modify the houses, even in ways that may be in keeping with Pleasant Ridge, but are not in keeping with that particular house. So I would have to give some serious thought to creating a historic board that could take some of the creativity away from how we maintain and keep our houses very nice, but at the same time be in keeping with what exists in Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern?
By creating a historic zoning board, there are numerous restrictions on what you can and cannot do to your home. For instance, one of these restrictions is if you put an addition on your home, that addition must look different from the structure and be removable. So I don't believe that I would be in support of a historic district. What we can do, short of a historic district, is look at our own zoning ordinance and incorporate the things we want to and not incorporate the things we don't want to. And that's what we should do, and that's what the residents should have a say in, on what ordinance they want to be changed and what they don't want to be changed in relation to how the aesthetics of our homes.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Yes, I have to agree. In going out and talking to a number of people, it's very clear that we all appreciate the diversity of our housing, the historic nature of much of the housing, but a lot of people are scared to death that we're going to impose some kind of historic designations and restrictions that are going to really limit what people can do to their homes. And I think what we do, again, as Ryan said, we have ordinances. We certainly have ways of allowing people to make certain adjustments that don't have to meet very strict restrictions and yet still fit within what our community values. And we're not going to go into the Bigfoot. We're not going to start to become Birmingham. There are a lot of things that we can continue not to do. We're not going to go with the garages in front. A lot of those kinds of restrictions we can put in our zoning and still maintain the historic nature of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
Setting up an independent board for older architecture is really a problem. The last city I was at, that was set up, and it ended up with so many lawsuits because people weren't even allowed to put certain paint on their homes. I think we can control it with ordinance, as the rest of the committee, the group here has said, and I think that's the way to do it. If you put in so many restrictions, nobody would be able to work on their house in any way. So I don't think that I would be in favor of setting up a zoning board for that architectural type of work.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman?
I think my thoughts on this will sound rather similar to what has already been said, but basically I think a historical zoning board, if I would be in favor of that or not, it would really depend on what this actually translates to. My understanding of what it would mean is that it would really allow a particular body in the city to pore over every single decision, paint colors, styles of shingles and things like that, just to such a granular degree that it would really stifle the creativity of the homeowner. And I don't think we want to do that. I think we want to make sure that our homeowners are improving their homes according to our zoning ordinances and code. If we have gaps in that code, if we have areas that don't represent the things that we want to include in our city, then we can enhance that. But I really don't want to introduce too much subjectivity into the process of a resident improving their home. We already have enough problems with our Zoning Board of Appeals, and that's a tough spot to be in because you have to tell residents no when they want to improve their homes. As long as we're enforcing our zoning code consistently and uniformly, I think we'll be in a much better position. So change the code if we need to, enforce it uniformly.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. There have been so many great questions tonight. I'm going to ask you all two more. This one will start with Mr. Stern. Would you have a plan to fund road repairs on our streets?
There is a plan to fund road repairs on our streets. The infrastructure I'm sorry, could you read the question again?
Sure. Would you have a plan to fund road repairs on our streets?
Okay, there is a plan to fund road repairs on our streets as we sit here today. There's an infrastructure millage. That's the millage that we are voting on, Proposal B, to renew it. Proposal B is for road repairs and road replacements because of the downfall in the economy. The plan was to complete 2 roads every year. The problem is they ran out of money because tax money wasn't coming in. That millage, the infrastructure millage, is about to expire in 2014, and that's why, or 2015, excuse me, and they are requesting to renew that millage so that we can complete the road repairs and continue with the road replacements.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Metzger?
Yes, I have to echo that. We do have the infrastructure millage that we will be asking for approval again to re-up, and I think that's very important. There is some contention that we are not going to be able to continue to fund a road repair every year. We may have to cut back to 2 every 3 years based on the tax dollars that we have. Those discussions need to be had. There need to be more discussions around how do we see road repairs, what do we want to put, do we want to put other monies toward those going forward? But certainly a lot of people already have talked about we're ready to recycle a lot of the roads that were repaired at one time. We've got to get back. And then there's the whole infrastructure around the sidewalks as well. So we really want to start talking about the sidewalks in addition to the street repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino?
Yes, there is an infrastructure program in place right now. And the way the roads are paved is that through the infrastructure plan and the interest that was derived from the SCAF, which is the money that we received for 696 coming through, the interest was put with the infrastructure fund, and each road was done, sometimes 2 roads a year. Of course, we all know that interest rates are not what they used to be. So we're not able to do the roads that we had at one time. There's 26 roads to be done, 20 are done, 6 are left. Question was raised, what do we do when we get 26 roads done? Well, you start over again. That's part of the program. And I understand Ridge Road was done during the initial deal with the state when they put the 696 through, so that one needs to be done, and that's going to be an expensive one. But as far as minor repairs on the road, that's why we have a local and major street fund. And we get money from the state for, and that's called your gas and weight taxes. We get that for the simple repairs. Major repairs and major replacements come under the infrastructure fund.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman?
Yes, again, as has already been said, we do have an infrastructure millage in place. We're looking at Proposal B, which would continue that existing millage. I think we definitely need that. We have some roads that have not been repaired yet. We need to continue the process of repairing the roads. As was also mentioned, we have the SCAF fund, the 696 settlement. The interest from this was at one point funding the repair of 2 roads per season. Now we're down to 1. We're also now including sidewalks with our road repairs, which is, I think, great. If we look at Proposal A, part of the tentative plan there that the current City Commission has in place would be to put 0.5 mils on that, so we could help circle back and replace some of the sidewalks that were left behind after some roads were done without sidewalk repairs. So I think Proposal B is necessary. We need to continue the millage so we can continue to repair our streets. I think that's all I have to say about that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott?
I'm also in favor of Proposal B. As others have said, it takes care of our road systems through 2035. It extends it an additional 20 years. But I think we need to think bigger than roads and sidewalks. It's infrastructure. Our city is getting older, and there are going to be other things that need to be repaired. And so I think we'll have to be realistic and understand that we may have times where road repairs are delayed as a result of other repairs, infrastructure repairs that have to be made. But that needs to be a part of our overall long-term plan. Roads, sidewalks, sewer systems, whatever else that may need to be repaired as part of infrastructure, and lay it out over a number of years, planning for the fact that some things are going to come up because of the age of our community. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. This will be the last question, and we'll start with Mr. Metzger. What do you see as the 3 major issues currently facing Pleasant Ridge, and what would be your agenda for the first 60 days in office? Mr. Metzger.
60 or 90 seconds?
Okay.
That's a 90-second question.
It is at least a 90-second question. I'm going to do this really quickly. I think the 3 major issues are fiscal stability. Obviously, we have to stay fiscally stable and be very clear on our fiscal decisions. I think also the disconnect between residents and their government. We haven't gotten to this tonight, but there has to be much more open discussions. We have to be sharing information with our residents. Residents have to be there to make decisions and get full information and make it available. I also think that we talked about it, but managing the opportunity presented by Complete Streets and the transit work that's going on Woodward Avenue. I think this is critical to our business development. It's critical to our walkability across Woodward, and we have to get that done. First 60 days, hire a city manager. That's obviously our primary responsibility. Begin a collaborative building our budget planning process, collaborative between citizens and government, and change the culture of government. Fix the website. Start to make more information available and trust the residents to be a vital part of decision-making in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Mr. Rubino.
Well, one thing I would do is strengthen our fiscal position. But, oh, sorry. I thought my mouth was loud enough. So. First thing I would do is strengthen our fiscal position without compromising our standards, mortgaging our future, or losing control of our destiny. Because crunching numbers is one thing, but managing numbers is another, and I know how to manage numbers. The other thing I would do is make sure that we have communication between all parts of the city, that all of us do things together. I would make sure that everybody was involved and talk about transparency. Transparency is something that is needed, and sometimes when you negotiate contracts, you can't do that. But when we're not negotiating contracts, transparency is very vital and important. And communication among all neighbors and everybody treated the same is exactly what I believe in. I just think that it's very, very important that we do that. And again, I got 15 seconds. So in 60 days, I think Kurt was right. We have to hire a city manager. That's the most important thing we must do in the first month or so that we're there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Foreman.
I was asked for a top 3. I actually have 4. First priority, interim city manager. That has to happen immediately. We won't have much time to do it. So we need to use Michigan Municipal League to help us find an interim city manager that can continue our business of the city. Second priority, permanent city manager. Obviously, we need to conduct a full search. That's going to take some time. That's very important. Again, as has already been mentioned, this person runs the day-to-day operations of the city, directs the City Hall staff. Third, I would say, would be to react to the results of Proposal A. If it passes, we need to decide as a community how we're going to spend that money. How much money will we actually levy? If it doesn't pass, we'll need to begin the process of starting over again. To do this better this time, and communicate earlier in the process involving residents in the crafting of the ballot proposal. Also the tentative plan that the city would have in place for after Proposal A. Fourth, I would say I would really feel that we need to focus strongly on working to bring the community back together where any gaps have been created over the past few years. This is extremely important, and there are many ways to do it, but working together in community outreach and making sure that we understand we're all in this together is primary.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Scott.
My 3 priorities are where I started my discussion this evening: planning, maintenance, and an eye to the future, thinking forward. We have a master plan and a recreational plan that are in process, and what I want to make sure is that they have some meat to them. They are actionable, they're something that we can measure, and that we actually do what we say we are going to do in the master and the recreational plan. So I want to make sure that those have good legs, good bones. But first and foremost, the only way that anything will work is that we have a good city manager in place, and so that's going to be the highest priority, is to make sure that that person gets hired and selected as quickly as possible. Wrapped around all of that is additional community involvement. So we want to make sure that everyone in the community feels as though they've had an input, as much input as they would like, have access to whatever information they need to feel comfortable and happy and informed. And that's also a priority.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Stern?
I'm going to reiterate what everybody else here has said. The first thing we need to do in this first 60 days is get a city manager. We need to go through the process and get a city manager. Otherwise, we're not going to have a city manager in the next 60 days. The second thing we need to do is we need to plan for our financial future. Depending on what happens with the millage is going to be depending on what we have to do. If the millage passes, we need to keep the promises that have been made by the city to the residents and implement that tax increase that has been promised. If the proposal does not pass, then we need to figure out how to maintain our services, what process we need to go through so that we can maintain the services that we have and that we all cherish. The last thing we need to do is we need to work together. We need to start with the government, though. Our government needs to work together first and teeter down to the residents. If we don't work together, well, we may just end up with a government shutdown or something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Okay, now the candidates will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. That's 1 minute for that also. We'll start in reverse alphabetical order, so Mr. Stern, you're up first.
Microphone. Through my knowledge and experience, I will bring an informed and unique perspective to the City Commission. As an attorney, I have a specialized knowledge in negotiating and comprehending contracts. Since Pleasant Ridge contracts out virtually all services, an attorney is an invaluable asset to the city. If elected, I will be the only attorney on the City Commission. As a small business owner, member of the Planning Commission, Downtown Development Authority, and various other charitable boards, I have experience with local governments, budgeting, fiscal responsibility, and working with others. As a resident with a wife, 2 children, and many friends in Pleasant Ridge, I know the importance of safety, community, and our exceptional services. If elected, I will use my knowledge and experience and work with the City Commission and the residents to preserve the community and services that we all value. No matter what the future holds, by working together and becoming united, we can always have an incredible city. On November 5th, vote for character, integrity, and experience. Vote for Ryan Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Scott.
I feel very fortunate to be a member of the Pleasant Ridge community, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve the community with the experience and knowledge that I've gained in over 3 decades of working in the private sector. I will again state the 3 things that I think are most important to bringing Pleasant Ridge to the next level and preserving all of these things that we find so important in Pleasant Ridge. It is making sure that we have a plan that we can work to and that has the input from all of our residents. Making sure that we maintain the things that we already have in our possession. There are little things around town that just need to be fixed up, and I want to help us get those things in order. And then lastly, we have to take an eye towards the future. The world around Pleasant Ridge is changing. Detroit is going to reinvent itself, Woodward will change, and there are aspects of Pleasant Ridge that we absolutely want to hold near and dear, and I want to help the community do that while moving us forward.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Foreman.
Again, neighbors, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight to find out what the 5 of us are all about. In my closing statements now, I'd like to focus on our city's greatest asset, the friendships and bonds between neighbors. I feel these bonds have been stressed in recent years and fractures have been created. Our city commission has been visibly dysfunctional for the past 2 years. We had a very emotional election in 2011, and where there once appeared to be almost complete harmony, there's now a deep crack. I believe our city commission leads by example, and significant, unworkable division at that level inevitably trickles down to the residents. Before us, we have a choice, and the choice I will make as city commissioner is for us to work together to repair the fractures that have formed. And this can only happen through real communication and true collaboration. These are my strong points in my professional life, and I would like to bring these talents to our city government starting this November. Once again, I'm asking for your vote so we can not only relish the successes of our city's past, but also work together to create new stories for future generations to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Rubino?
Yes, with my past experience and knowledge of city government, sorry. With my past experience and knowledge of city government, I feel that I have more to offer. With the present city manager leaving us, I believe you have to have somebody there that understands this transition and knows how to handle this transition. With new commissioners coming on board, understanding exactly how a council or a commission is to operate, I believe I have that knowledge and understanding and how to make that happen. You know, there's been a lot of people in our community that their children have grown up, moved away, and then came back. And they came back because they love this community. I want to keep the community the same way that those children that came back feel about this community. They come here because it's unique, it's a beautiful community, and everybody is well received and welcome in our community. I want to keep that and always have that anybody can come and live in our community and be happy here. That's my intention and my goal, and I hope you elect me mayor on November 5th. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Mr. Metzger?
I feel the experience that I've had as a founder, manager, and CEO of a nonprofit organization is directly applicable to the job of mayor. Cities and nonprofits operate in essentially similar manners, with the objective being not to maximize profit, but to maximize value and quality of life to constituents. As part of managing a nonprofit, I've had to identify the vision for what the organization was going to do, match expenses to revenues, and oversee the day-to-day operations of the organization. All of these things are directly applicable to being the chairman of the board of the city. We're not electing a city manager, we're electing a mayor who leads the commission as it sets policy and visions for the city. City staff will provide the specific technical knowledge to manage the day-to-day of city business and to carry out the commission's policies. My strength is an ability to analyze issues using available information, consult stakeholders, and then decide and advise the best course of action. My entire career was spent honing this skill set with both public and private sector partners. So as you elect a mayor, you want someone with the willingness to work with interested and engaged residents and the ability to bring big picture thinking to the city to create the best possible future for all of us. I feel I am the person for that job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. Okay, Pleasant Ridge, these are your candidates. Candidates for mayor are Kurt Metzger and Frank Rubino. You will vote for one for a 4-year term. Your candidates for City Commission are Jay Foreman, Brett Scott, and Ryan Stern. You will vote for two 4-year terms. The League of Women Voters would at this time like to thank the audience, the candidates, and CMN TV for being here tonight. Thank you for all your great questions, and candidates, thank you for your thoughtful answers. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates and other races happening in November, please see our website at LWVOA and click on voter guides for more answers to questions from these candidates. When known, the rebroadcast time of this forum will be published on our website and also on the CMN TV website. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens like you. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 18. Remember to get out and vote on November 5th. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you very much.